Okay, we're live. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome.
That sounded almost musical.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yep. I feel tensions happening this stream. Like they're coming.
Good luck to us. Welcome to Writer's Workshop, and where we take a book and we read it sometime during the month, sometimes earlier, sometimes the night before, me, and then we have our little panel and we discuss it.
Yeah.
And today we are discussing Right to Market by Chris Fox. And the ladies can introduce themselves, and we can start with Alina. And I'm going to check and make sure everyone's links are in the description.
It's all good. Hello, everyone. My name is Alina Popescu. I'm a fiction writer. I mostly write paranormal, urban fantasy, some contemporary romance, and most recently mysteries because I hate myself. I'm here on YouTube, and I've recently started to post on a schedule. So if you head over there, you have a lot of new content to watch, which is new.
Amber?
Hang on. First off, I gotta say I love the fact that you said "because I hate myself" and your dog goes, "Huh?" Like, like right on you.
I mean, it's true because like the more genres you write, the more marketing you have to do, and the harder it is to just build united readership. But it's fine. I mean, I do it knowingly.
Fine.
It's fine.
It was right on cue. I had to say that. Hi guys, I'm Amber Kraft. I write paranormal romance only for the time being. Yeah, that's me.
All right, and CJ?
I'm CJ Bloyer. I write predominantly fantasy fiction, but I am dipping my toes in the waters of Christian fiction at the moment. So.
Oh, very interesting. And normally Sky's here with us, but she had a death in the family and she couldn't be with us. So our thoughts are with her, and hopefully next month we can all be back together again, like one happy dysfunctional family.
Yes.
Putting the fun in dysfunctional.
Oh my God.
The accuracy.
We started this stream on a high note.
I'm just trying to get enough coffee in so I can see clearly. Oh no, a gnat died in my water. Come on. Oh man.
I mean, if it's water, I throw it away. If it's in my coffee, I just pick stuff out of it and continue drinking.
Yeah. Did you see me like look at my cup? Like, did you have a friend? Oh, good grief. Okay, I'm sorry. Very sorry. We're gonna get it together. I'm so sorry that we are kind of goofy. I mean, sorry, not sorry.
Why? Sorry, this is us. Like,
we make
people come for the books. I mean, people come for the books, obviously, but they stay because of the cray.
I agree. I think that is definitely the way that works.
Our personalities have the fun just watching us.
So, I think that one of the interesting points that Chris brought up pretty much immediately in the book was that people often think that if you're trying to write to market, that you're a sellout.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that concept. I want to do stuff to it. And, like, I don't want to get the stream banned, but yes, it makes me very violent. And it goes hand in hand with if you write fast, it's crap.
Yeah. Yeah. And it follows in a lot of the what is a writer? Like the definition of what kind of stereotypes you have to fill to be a writer. You have to be a certain type of writer. You have to write in a certain people who write. I think it falls in the same category of the if you write genre fiction, you're not as much of a writer as someone who writes literary fiction.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stereotypes out there, and I think some of it is perpetuated by the writing community as a whole, but I also think a lot of it comes from the non-writing community's perception of what writing is.
Yes, but I think it's not exactly the perception of readers. I think it's mostly the perception of either other industries or I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but ThreadPub. I'm sorry, ThreadPub and everyone associated with them, and librarians are in there too, who say that they can't take risks with indie books and stuff like that, which pisses me off because that's not exactly true. But that's changing. I think that's important to say. It's changing, especially in certain genres. I have to say the LGBT fiction and romance genre is a bit privileged because major traditional publishers are just dipping their toes into it because Love, Simon was so successful. Right. And there are a lot of indie publishers, larger or smaller, and a lot of indie authors that fill the gap. And I know of author friends who went to local libraries, bookstores, to just, I mean, they expected a no, but they said who they were and that they were wondering if they wanted to carry their books. And the girls there who were actually younger were like, oh yeah, I know your pen name actually. And we definitely need more LGBT titles. Yeah. So even if it starts with niche genres that are underrepresented in ThreadPub, I think indie authors are kind of filling the gaps and then expanding. That's just my opinion. So I think the more we let the readers decide what's good and what's not good, we'll be fine and we'll have less stereotypes.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big points that Chris in his book was trying to nail home for us. Like, writing to market doesn't mean that you're a sellout. It doesn't mean that you're just a money grubbing hooer. It means that you are trying to write books that the readers will like, as opposed to writing books that an agent will like, or writing books that a publishing house will write, because those are just different entities, and we're writing directly to the readers. But
it's still writing to market. The only difference is that you have to guess trends like years ahead. And Alexa Dunn actually talked about this in a video a while back about knowing how to guess trends so that you can kind of pinpoint when agents would want certain types of books. Like you have to know when sci-fi is on the wave again, or vampire books or whatever. So it's not like all traditional publishers only want the purest literary fiction, because they publish a lot of genre fiction. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, that makes money. People want to read it.
Yeah,
of course,
and you can make
money
on things that people read.
And the biggest money maker out there is the one genre and all its subgenres that are the most made fun of, and that's romance. Like, nothing sells as well as romance. That's just fact.
And he addresses that too, which is one of the, I think, really awesome things about the way he writes, is he's very open about, this is the reality of writing, and you can be as uppity as you like about it, but it doesn't negate the fact that these people are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
I like that he used people like examples of authors, so that because he doesn't write every single thing, though he does have quite a few different genres that he covers. So for example, with romance, he doesn't write romance, but he had someone who is a romance author talk to him about the tropes so that he can give that information to us. And I really valued that. I felt like that was way more valuable than someone just doing the research themselves, even though, because someone who is successful in that genre, they've been studying the trends. They've been talking to readers. They're invested in this. Like, it's already part of their day to day. So I was like, yes, 2 thumbs up, Chris.
I also appreciate the 2 things that have. This was the first book of his I read, and now I've read 2 more since then. But one of the things I like, and it's consistent in most of his books, or at least the ones I've read, is that one, he's very plain spoken. I've read a lot of craft books that are very high-minded, and the advice they give you tends to be very vague. It's, you should show rather than tell.
What does it mean?
Okay. What does that mean? and especially when you're first starting out in writing, that's not something that you don't know all the little things that are like, what does that particular idiom mean? And so he's very good at saying, this is the concept that I want you to focus on. And then this is how you do it. And then the thing I like the best is the practical exercises at the end of each chapter. Like that more than anything else, because I'll be really honest, I feel adrift in the vast sea of marketing and writing advice often. Like I feel adrift. Like there's a lot of advice out there, and a lot of it feels kind of like, well, this worked for me. Here, it's God's truth.
Well, and like you said, it's so vague that you're like, okay, well, that could work. But then by the time you try to apply it, it is so vague that you're like, well, am I doing that already? Or how far into that can I get? And I kind of feel like he's, I don't know, like you're back in school, like, because he has the lesson plan, the exercise at the end, he explains everything in that chapter so that when you go to that exercise, if you don't understand exactly what he's saying, you can go back and reread that chapter.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's the thing I like most about his writing and his advice in general, because he's the same on his YouTube channel. By the way, people, you should all go subscribe. I do not understand why his and Joanna Penn's are not the most subscribed subscribed channels on YouTube, because they actually have a lot of experience.
That a lot of people don't realize what's there, honestly, because they're not in that demographic. They're not like young.
I mean, people who know that he exists will know to search for him everywhere.
But I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description so that if you guys want to check him out, please do.
I totally recommend it.
Excellent advice.
And now, because I segued into a rant, going back to my initial point, what I like about his advice, and this applies to people in the 20 books to 50K group in general, is the fact that they don't do exactly what CJ pointed out, that some people find something that worked for them and then present it as the golden rule. This is how it works. This is how you should do it. If you don't do it like that, it won't work. Well, he's always explaining this is just one way of doing things. It's not for everyone, and you don't have to do all of it. You can just pick parts of it, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, which I found very helpful. I listened to the book 3 or 4 times before I even tried to do the exercises. And I had to have Alina help me do the first one because I wasn't quite sure what he was talking about when he says, go to Amazon and look for this. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So
I did think that one was a little weak because it is kind of difficult to find like top sellers depending on your genre. It could be difficult, but go on.
I'm wondering if that is 2 things. One of the things that I think may have happened is that, how long ago was this book written?
2016.
So one of the things I wondered was, has Amazon changed their layout a little bit or their search functions a little bit since then?
All the time.
Yeah. So that can contribute to it. And I think that was my biggest problem, is that the way he said it was laid out wasn't exactly how it was laid. Like, it was similar, but I got lost trying to find exactly what he was talking about.
That's because things change. But
right. And I think that that's totally acceptable. But it was very helpful. That wasn't something I ever thought about doing. Is like spending some time in Amazon looking at the genres that are popular and then looking through, like, it never occurred to me that that was something. And I love that he's a data nerd like that.
Yeah.
And he could say, hey, I've done this. You could do it too. It's really easy, because that's not something I would ever have thought of. So
yeah, and I think if he hadn't have spoken so plainly, then you wouldn't have felt like you could do it either. So
right.
then you would have been like, okay, that's great for you, but yeah, I can't do that. So, and the way he said first thing in the story was, because I wrote it down, I was like, writing to market is picking an undeserved genre that has a voracious appetite and giving the market what it wants. And I'm like, well, if people, it's overdone, writing to market, you're selling out, like, isn't that what every author does? You want to write to what your people want, and you want to write a good story, but sometimes you kind of get lost in what you want to write versus what you think people want. And I like that he shows his failures in that. Like, I thought this was going to be a great book, but it just wasn't, what the people want. Because I think
he's really, and I like that he's really clear about there's a big difference between writing a book that sells and writing a good book. Now, those two things you can have the same things in a book, but writing a good book doesn't necessarily mean it sells. Yeah. And that, I think, is an important something I'd never thought about. Like,
and a lot of times, like
writing well.
Yeah, a lot of times it's not because people wouldn't buy that book. It's because people focus so much on writing a good book and they don't do the necessary research to then sell it properly. Because one mistake a lot of people do, especially self-published authors, is to think that if they see some traditionally published books and they take inspiration from them in terms of how to write blurbs, how to design a cover, so on and so forth, that works. Not always the case.
Yeah.
Not always the case, especially if it's a subgenre where indie publishing does well.
Right.
Because Threadpub has a different budget, different distribution. They grip their readers in a different way. They don't rely as much on online sales. Let's be honest, they don't. They do sell a lot online, but they do push their hardcover and paperbacks and everything. In terms of online, you learn really fast that a smart, moody cover doesn't always work. And I've been there, done that, changed my covers to match the genre, and guess what? I had more sales.
Yeah.
It happens, and a lot of times you write a great book, but then the cover doesn't match the genre and the blurb isn't what you think it was. And it's also, I think that a lot of times authors just don't understand the advice that's given to them. And I've seen people writing in different genres, like they have books in different genres. And when you look at the covers, you assume they're in the same genre.
Right.
That to me is a mistake. That will confuse people. And it's not their fault for not reading the blurb. It's your fault for how your covers look. Because that's what people see first. They see the cover. And if they've read your first book and your cover looks like it's in the same genre, it's your fault, not theirs.
And that was like another point that he was talking.
Sorry.
They're coming to get us.
No, I live across the street from a fire station. So
I love we're used to it, where I was like, what am I hearing?
Well, because it wasn't coming from here.
Right.
So I was confused. I was like, wait, normally it's some EMS that's driving past. Oh my gosh, so many sirens and planes. Anyway, so that was a really good point that he brought up when he was talking about like how important that cover is, how important the blurb is, and being sure to look at your genre and look at these different books that are in your genre and figuring out what is the commonality. and not looking at traditionally published books. And I think that is a mistake that I made with Blood Roses and Honeysuckles. I looked up traditional pub books, but they have the money to push into pushing the book.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of budget. It'd be nice if I did. It would be this background would look very different, but I don't. So, and because of that, I made a cover that I thought that a traditionally published book would have, and that didn't hit with the readers.
Right.
Yeah. So that was.
But it's important to say you can always change your cover.
Yeah.
That is true.
And I like that he talks about that as well, not just the cover, but he talks about when you make a mistake, it's okay, learn from it, and start again.
Yeah.
Like he says it several times throughout the book is, if this didn't work and your book doesn't sell, start writing, start researching the next one, start the process over again. This isn't something that's like you only have one shot or something like that.
Oh yeah, because like I like the way he breaks, like especially that part. He's talking about you have your cover, you have your blurb, you have your tropes. Maybe it's one little aspect that's off. Maybe it's the whole book that's off. It's knowing your tropes and knowing your covers and knowing how to execute it differently and well enough that you stand out. Not that you just follow everybody else and hope that it sells.
Right, like you are not writing Hunger Games. You're writing something that has those tropes, but it's still uniquely yours. And I thought that was something that was important.
Yes, especially like if you're in a genre that is in some ways glutted, like writing in fantasy fiction, that's such a packed genre. There's so much there, and then trying to find a niche where your book can fit sometimes feels very overwhelming and feels like, well, but this is what I want to write. And so using that, what kind of tropes and what kind of cover and like
genre expectations.
He gives you this checklist of things to inform how you write so that you can be more successful.
Just a second, Jesse, there's a site, I think it's called TV Tropes, that has tropes per genre. They pertain mostly to TV series and films, but they're good for books as well, just for inspiration. And what I recommend, if you want to figure out the tropes in your genre, go to Amazon, go to that genre's top sellers, like best-selling books, look at the first 20 to 50 and start reading. See which are that will tell you exactly what are the most popular tropes, and then you can choose, because there are tropes that I hate, like arranged marriages. That doesn't mean that I don't like the fake boyfriend trope or the enemies to lovers trope.
Right.
So I can find inspiration in those and write things that I love and, set the others aside. But you figure it out really quickly when you start reading your genre.
Yes.
To me, I've got to admit, no matter how long I've been writing, the trope thing has always, it just kind of reminded me, because Aphrodite said it made her go down a rabbit hole. I researched that for almost a year straight, looking at, because I read predominantly paranormal romance anyway. So I kind of knew the major tropes, but after he was talking about setting yours apart and looking at the tropes, I was like, well, I want to find out what all the tropes are. And so I literally just wrote them all down. And there's a lot of YouTube videos that talk about, what tropes people hate, what tropes people love. And I watched a lot of
Sarcastic Productions has a series on tropes.
Yeah.
It's called Trope Talk. That's great.
What was it called?
They're super. I think it's Overly Sarcastic Productions. Let me just Google it, because I keep forgetting the exact names. But I recognize the channel immediately.
Yeah. But like when I first started writing, that was like the one thing I never understood, and I was like, I'm just gonna give up. Like I'm not gonna even think about it. And he,
that's it. Overly Sarcastic Productions. When you search on YouTube, it's the first channel that pops up for me.
Give me the link.
I can
and
send you the link so you can post it. They have Trope Talk, and they also, I mean, if you want inspiration from mythology and history, they're great, and they're funny too. So, also, I totally recommend. I think it's called Bad Writing Advice.
Yes.
Let me search that one and give it to Tamara. Terrible writing advice. That's it.
Yeah.
I told you I always get it a little wrong. If they talk a lot about certain types of characters, certain types of tropes, and how, I mean, it's sarcastic. It's overly sarcastic this time as well. It's pretty much like, why do what you should do when you can do this, which this is what not to do. You'll figure it out fast. And I think that will help to design certain characters in certain types of stories and help with your tropes. But yeah, and a lot of this is just experience in writing that genre, because the thing about genre expectations and tropes is that you have to know them well enough so that when you subvert them, you do it in a interesting way and you don't get everyone hating you. That's the whole point. I mean, you don't have to stick to everything, and I think he's pretty clear about that you don't have to do it all based on a strict formula.
Yeah.
To go on, Amber?
Well, no, that was, to me, the biggest part I got out of the whole book was, you know, I've been learning about covers and I've been learning about blurbs and things like that as, I guess, my writing progressed. But when it came to the book, I didn't think about how you could, you know, like she just said, use some tropes but not others. I always thought if you had to follow the formula of using all the tropes in that genre, but it kind of made me feel okay, or that it was okay that you could just pick one trope in the genre, or, you know, like there wasn't a set formula you had to follow as far as that went.
By the way, the links are in the Hangout chat.
Yeah, I already posted them in the description. So
yeah, no, I was checking the chat. Because I had the impression you were going to post them in the chat, and because I didn't see them, I thought, like, maybe I should be clear about where I send stuff. Sorry. Don't mind me.
I just wanted them to be available to anyone who's watching it afterwards.
Yeah,
so
makes
I have
perfect sense.
in the description it says Alina's Rex, and then there's a few links there. So enjoy. Let's see.
Was there anything in the book that you guys felt was either too much of an expectation or something that you would disagree with? I don't have a lot of experience, obviously, in marketing a book or because I've not had any published. Was there anything that you saw that you felt he missed the mark on?
Not really.
I don't think missed the mark, but I think he's written a lot more books than like all of us have, with the exception of Alina. You wrote a lot more than us, but you know, he says something about how you should know within like a week or two at the most, or whether a book is going to sell or not. And I understand what he's getting with that, but I think for like us just starting out and learning it all as we go, that maybe that's not, it might be correct advice, but that, you know, I wouldn't exactly take it off just because it doesn't sell right away, because you're not known.
I mean, in my case, it works out. Because like the first few weeks are the weeks where you kind of do all your marketing. It's the most important part of marketing, because the first thing I do, and I've done this recently, when I didn't do a lot of marketing, what I did was maybe post about it on social media, but what I did was send an email to my newsletter for the most part, and I see them and their interest and whether they're buying or not, and then if there are any other sales.
Right.
And
like I don't have a newsletter or anything
and
to tell
if
people.
if there's read through after that. But if you don't have that, you have a number of other means to promote it, and you can advertise. Obviously, you can do a lot of things. But if you do put the, I mean, yeah, it's different for an author who is just starting out. Obviously, it takes a bit more time, especially if they don't have a really clear marketing plan. But what I was going to say is that in his case, for the way he describes the entire process, you do have a marketing strategy in place when you're finally releasing the book. You do have a newsletter or a website or something. You've done something. You have the platform.
Right.
And I think that's really, yeah, even if it's not huge, you do have it. And the point is, if you have this group of people, let's say it's 5 of them, right? Like, let's go with the smallest. Let's say 10. Okay, not 5, because that's just, let's say you have 10 people, and you've been teasing them about this book, and they showed interest before, and then you send them a newsletter. The book is out. This is the cover. This is the blurb. Go buy it. And they all click on it, and nobody buys. There might be a problem there.
Yeah.
Especially if they knew about it and they showed enthusiasm before. But if you do send that newsletter and you have like 5 people open it and then to buy it, clearly you're doing something right. So I think he is right, but you have to kind of extrapolate a bit and compare it to the market you're addressing.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't necessarily agree with was, first of all, the prices that he quoted. I didn't want people to think that if you were going to be an indie author, that you have to pay $3,000 for editing. Yeah. I was like, whew.
Oh, yeah, the prices.
Like, well, because a lot of people who are going to pick up this book, they're in the beginning stages. So just be aware, audience. You don't have to spend that much money. That's not a requirement.
Yes.
just be aware.
But
I also felt that I think that, like, at the point that he had written this book, he had published 9 books, and he was talking about how he was going to be concentrating less on how much editing he did in the back end, because he felt that it was more important to kind of push out more books, but to still have decent quality to them. And where I am right now, that's not where I am, but I would like to get to that point at some point where I don't need a developmental editor. And so I guess maybe it's not that I felt that he missed the mark. It was just that I think that these are things that are individual authors have to think about, and you have to look at your own journey and where you are, because it's not a one size fits all type of thing.
And for the price thing.
Yeah, and he does talk about that in, where is it? Let's say it's further on. Oh, no, don't do that. Sorry, I have it in front of me, but I got to find the. Anyway, he talks about, I think it's this one. He talks about what are the things that you do in your writing? What are the parts of your writing, the different aspects of your writing job? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to find it because there was an exercise to go with it. It's exercise 8, and he's talking about each distinct part of your writing business, and then rate each activity from 1 to 10. And like, he talks about minimizing the amount of work you do, and I think that is something that somebody who's more established can start saying, oh, well, I can farm out these things, because he talks about hiring a virtual assistant to handle your email and hiring a virtual assistant to do this, and I'm like, yeah, that's not in my budget.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that there is something to be said for understanding where you're at in the business sequence, I guess. So if you're like me and you're just getting started and you don't have any books out and you don't have a budget for anything, saying, okay, these are the 10 things that I have to do for my writing. Right now, I have to do all of them. But identifying those things that maybe when I get a little bit further down the road, I can say, okay, these are the things I can farm out, or these are the things that aren't quite as important. Or even just, and this is something I think it's good life advice as well as business advice, but prioritizing the things that you do. Like, there are things you have to do. You have to eat. You have to take in water. You have to sleep. You have to go to the bathroom. These are necessities. You don't
have to watch Netflix. You have to, you have to go to Starbucks. Come on.
But what I'm saying is, like, so when you go into your business, identifying those things that you do absolutely have to do, and then identifying those things that maybe are not as important.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
I really need to do that exercise.
It's
okay.
It's really a good life exercise in general, not just writing.
From the perspective of someone who's taken on more of the bookish tasks.
Oh, really?
Fucking hell. Yes. In case you missed it, I think after my first few books, I decided to do my own formatting for everything. And then recently, at some point last year, I decided to do my own covers. And I started with contemporary gay romance covers, which I knew really well. I thought they were a good starting point for me. And I kind of knew the genre well enough to know what to look for in those covers. I would like to outsource everything but writing in one way. And in the other way, I really like doing covers. So you have to find a balance between what makes business sense and what tasks you enjoy the most. And I say when you start outsourcing, start with the tasks you loathe. But I mean, for me, I would definitely outsource a lot of the social media management because that's a time waster. I don't particularly want to go to Facebook anymore these days. I can do Instagram myself, but I don't want to go to Twitter and Facebook and search through all the drama. I just don't want to, like, honestly. And keep doing stuff that are either fast and quick and don't require a lot of your time, or or tasks that you really enjoy. Because, like, for formatting at this point, why bother? Like, I have Juto. It takes me 5 minutes to get from the final Word doc to an ebook. And if I want to do my ebook and my paperback, all I have to put into it is a day of my life. That's it. And I've done different things, like having a little feather for the Angel's Feather series as a chapter heading and break. I've done complicated things. I played with fonts. I did a lot of research for it, but it should be stuff that intrigues you and you're into and you enjoy. At first, you'll have to do it all if you don't have a big budget. That's also the case. But if you have a budget, I say play it smart, at least at first. Like, if I had the money now, and I couldn't do my own covers, I'd invest in a cover. God damn it, I would invest in that. Other than editing, for me, editing is a necessity. Like, I wouldn't cut out editing. How much editing you need, that depends from author to author. Some are great and only need someone to do a final edit. For them, others need more, whatever. But beyond that, like, if I had the money now and I couldn't do the covers, I'd invest in covers, like I said, and the rest I'd put into advertising and marketing stuff. Like, definitely, that's where I put my money. And even with that, you should like think it over. I don't think you need to pay someone thousands of dollars so that they run an ad campaign for you. I think if you have that kind of budget, use like $500 to do a few runs and see how things work, and then put the rest in advertising. That's my honest opinion. Especially right now, there's so much information, and you can get a lot for free. And there are good books and things. Plus, if anybody says they're a total expert, then they don't know what they're talking about, because things keep changing like week to week on Amazon. Bid strategies, keywords, efficiency, everything changes all the time. So yeah, I don't know. For me, it's a bit unclear. Like, I would say, yeah, outsource if you want to, don't if you don't want to. And I actually shared Nora Roberts' note recently, and she said she doesn't have staff because she hates dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
I felt that post on like a spiritual level, because the way that she does things is very streamlined. There's not a lot of frills. It's no nonsense. And I was like, yes.
But please remember, she's not a self-published author. As a self-published author, you can't do that. Like, even if you hate people, you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about her writing process in general. Like,
oh yeah, the process.
There's so many people who have like these huge, very elaborate structures that they work within, and for me, that is way more time consuming and just kind of daunting. I don't want to add that much to like my everyday writing, and I like that she was very much like, I write the stuff. I get in there, I write the stuff, and I do the thing, and I write for X amount of time, and this is just what I do. And I've been doing this for literally decades. Like,
yeah,
so
but
long.
I mean,
I appreciate that.
I don't know, man. I don't think we can. I don't think someone starting out right now could directly implement that process. It's a nice thing to have in mind for the future. That's what I want to do in the future with my process. But right now you can't. Like, you can't not be on social media much and not do anything other than write without A, a big budget, or B, no recognition. Because it would be like, if you cut a tree in the middle of the woods and nobody hears it fall, did it ever exist in the first place?
But I wasn't talking about her marketing. I was just talking about
yeah, the process is great. The process is great. But I was looking at it and I was thinking like, well, that's pretty much what I do for half the day. But then the rest of the day, I do the stuff that I need to, like figure out covers, figure out formatting, figure out marketing. But I do agree.
Have the luxury of the rest of her day, she gets to just like hang out with her husband and the dog.
Yeah, no, because that's in the evening. That's in the evening, and at the end of the day, that's what I do. Although sometimes I don't want to do that, and I stay home and read.
Well, and I think
because I'm too tired to move.
Sorry,
yeah,
I think that
go
goes
ahead.
back to the whole idea of. I think it goes back to the whole idea of not everything works for every author.
Right.
You have to figure out what works for you, and you know, what works for Nora may not work for you, and it may, and you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd die. Like, I'd start to have issues because, and this is a point that always makes me feel like I'm not the real writer, is that I'm a fucking extrovert and a people person, and I'm fine and I enjoy my own company, but from a point on, I need to talk to people. I need to be around people. Yeah. I need to talk to people and see them and be out and about in the world, and I enjoy that.
And I think that goes
less so. I mean, like that less so that
self-care. Yeah, that's all about self-care, and I think that's a vital aspect of writing. And I think you're absolutely right. In this community, I shouldn't say most, many writers are introverts.
Yes.
However,
sorry.
I'm like, is it time for a writing sprint?
No, but this is active time for me. Like, the streams I do are active time for me, so I have to log it.
Good call. But I think that, so like my sister, not the one I live with, but my other sister is an extreme extrovert. And I think that sometimes because a lot of our world is set up to reward extroversion, that we as introverts get together and we're like, well, nobody likes us and we just want to be left alone. But I think that it's important to acknowledge that extroverts need to take care of themselves as much as introverts. Introverts, you need to spend some time by yourself, embrace that. Extroverts, you need to spend some time with people, embrace that and acknowledge it. My sister is such an extreme extrovert that if she spends more than 6 hours by herself, she becomes depressed. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, because my other sister, if she spends 6 hours with people, she becomes grumpy. So like, yeah. I will say, my middle sister, she'll call me, she'll be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm home by myself, I'm enjoying it. She's like, do you want to come play with me? We are in our 30s. But no, it is. She wants me to come play with her. But I think it's important to acknowledge that that is part of your self-care and build in that time, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert or whatever, build in that time for self-care.
Yeah. And I think the thing I like more about this book than anything else was the fact that he did present writing to market as a strategy, and he explained that you don't have to write things you don't like. And I think this is important, because whenever you say write to market, people will generally assume you need to write stuff you're not really into, because those are the things that sell, which is not true.
Right.
Because most of us, I mean, it's very rare that people only like one thing and they just want to write that.
Yeah.
It's like, I like fantasy and sci-fi and even contemporary sometimes. And within those, I can find subgenres that are doing really well right now. And if it clicks with me, I'm going to write it.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, and I think this was when he talked about, I think it's at the very beginning, and he talks about how the child learning magic, that is a glutted market right now. And my first thought was, well, crap, that's what my free fiction is. It's children learning to use magic. But it occurs to me that I'm not putting that out to make money, clearly, because it's free. I know, because it's a shock. You can't make money on something that's free. But I also think that if you really have no interest in writing something that's going to be marketable, write what you want to write, and embrace the fact that you're not going to make a lot of money at it. Be okay with that.
I mean, and sometimes, I have to say this because it was the biggest surprise of my life. And I've said this before. Like, when I wrote Sky and Storm, I was really into it. Like, the trope was interesting because it was enemies to lovers. But other than that, it was a freaking nightmare to market because it was alternate universe, which kind of gave it a fantastical vibe, but there was no magic. There were medieval warriors, but it wasn't historical because alternate universe. And it was gay romance, but not contemporary, which was the best-selling niche. So I decided I'm going to launch this book. And I think the cover was on point. It showed a medieval castle and warrior. It wasn't exactly in the colors of fantasy and magic. And then I was like, if I sell 10 copies of this, I'm calling it a win. Turned out to be my best-selling book ever. None of my books have sold as much. I've had books, the books that are on the second and third spots have been out for at least a year longer than this one. And it's still at the very top. Like, I was in the black in the first 3 weeks.
Nice.
And for that one, I had to pay for covers and whatever and everything. So that was like, wow. Oh, okay. Okay. it was a fluke. It's not a rule. And I think that's very important to understand that flukes happen, but you can't easily reproduce them. It's why I'm probably so worried about the second book that it's been written for at least 6 months and I didn't even edit it. Yeah. And the thing is, you have to remember that it's mostly about knowing your market and what a genre requires of you. Like the very basics that you can stick to so that it fits the genre, and then you can play around with tropes and archetypes and whatever you want. And it will never force you to write something you don't like.
Right.
I mean,
And
if you do that...
Like, that's important to remember, is that he's not saying you have to write something you don't enjoy. He's saying figure out, in fact, he starts it off like the first exercise, he says, pick 3 genres. Like he gives you the option, 3 genres that you enjoy. So that's part of those parameters. Pick genres you enjoy. And then once you're in the genre you enjoy, then you can dig down and say, oh, okay, this is a subgenre that looks like it's doing really well right now, or it looks like it could be doing really well and it needs more writing, and I can do that.
Yeah.
The other thing that, and this is, I was a little intimidated by, was the idea of working so hard on something and then having the market change on you, or being wrong about the market and it not doing as well as you'd hoped. Like that was scary. That's scary to me.
Yeah, that's a bit scary as an idea, but
I don't think there's any way to predict that. That's just like a risk.
I mean, like what I'm doing now is I write in bulk. I write 3 books in a given series, release them, and then move to the next series, and then return with 3 more books, because that's what worked for me right now. Well, for Just Don't, the first bulk was 4 books, but whatever. Those were novellas. And the thing is, like, by the point I start releasing, I know, like, I can, especially if I do a rapid release, I know within a month. And anyway, at that point, I'm working on a different project. So worst case scenario, I don't go back at some point in the future, but I still have a complete chunk of 3 books that I can maybe enhance a bit with a box set in the future, and you know, it's part of my backlist. Maybe I'll revive it later, I don't know, but I don't think you should worry about that. Like I survived getting super sick and then breaking my leg, especially when I decided to move from Amazon exclusive to wide, which was the worst moment ever I could have picked. Like if someone would have said, pick the worst moment ever to not release anything for 6 months, that was it. And that's when it happened. And remember, I'm a full-time author. Sure, I still make some money in nonfiction because I do run blogs, but my bulk of income was writing, and I was out for 6 months, and fuck it, that hurt. Like it hit me hard. So if I survived that, anyone can survive a book not selling well, because you'll write the next one. It's a teachable moment. This was a teachable moment for me. And now I know when my next surgery is, and I'm going to make damn sure I release a lot before then.
Right. And I think that
so that I'm covered for a couple of months.
That's an important aspect of learning, is or not of learning, like, but of becoming a writer, is learning from your own mistakes and
a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I'll go first. So one thing that I was surprised about, or hadn't really thought about before, was he brought up the point of figuring out why readers read. And I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, that's an interesting thing. I've thought about why I read, right? Like but I've never thought about why readers in general pick up a certain genre and throw themselves into it. So I thought that was something interesting, and that was something that I hadn't questioned before. So what about you guys?
I think when I started reading the book, I kind of expected to have areas of it that I wouldn't agree with. And I don't mean the prices, whatever, because those vary a lot. And I've seen other people pay more for shittier edits. Anyway, it happens. It happens. I expected there to be differences on a philosophical level, and they never came. It never happened. And when he was talking about this exact thing, I realized that it couldn't have happened, because my philosophy going into this was that I had two main objectives. One was to write the book I'd want to read, and that's a huge thing, because most people, when you get into the right market conversation, go like, I want to write what I want to write. I don't want to write what I want to write. I want to write what I want to read, because that's why I love books, because I read them and I enjoy them. And I want to write a book like that. And the other aspect was that I wanted to touch people in a way, make them think, like make them think back of the book and, I don't know, connect with something. It wasn't supposed to be necessarily, oh, I like this character and that's why I like the book. Like, if you hate my character so much, you want to throw the book, but you keep reading because you want to know what happens in the end, I'm fine with that. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me, that everything made sense. And that there was this huge contrast between this book and other nonfiction books I've read, where they go for the gospel approach. This is the rule. This is the golden way. This is what you have to do. And this book was like, you could do this. And if you do this, this, and this might happen. If not, go back to the drawing board and try it again and tweak and twist. And I was like, where have you been most of my life? So yeah, that was like a weird thing for me, because I kept expecting, and there's no one who has a strategy in place and you agree with all of it on a philosophical level. Because sometimes, like I've seen that with people who say, message people on Facebook when your book is out, which I hate. Like, I would never do that. Like, never in my life. Because I get annoyed by it, so I wouldn't do it to other people. But in this book, like, nothing of what I've read was like, I would never do that in the rest of my life, ever. And that was I was like, huh, okay.
All right, then. Good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No, yeah. I was going to ask, what was the question? Because I think my internet glitched while you were asking the question.
I was just going to ask the same thing.
I was asking, what was one thing that surprised you or that you hadn't expected to learn from the book?
So for me, the idea that Amazon is not just a place where I can get really cheap office supplies, but it's a place I can do research. Like, I know that sounds like something you should but like for me, Amazon has just been like a big box store.
It's just another store, yeah.
I go when I need to get Post-its, which I never need to get, but I often get more. Or I need to order new filters, or I need to, like, it's like, that's how Amazon has been in my head. And so this last year, I've slowly been coming to the realization that Amazon can be more than that. And this book really took me to the next level of looking at Amazon as as a research opportunity or a research tool, and saying, oh, this is a good use that I could put this massive thing to. And so that was really surprising for me. And the idea that, again, this is something I've been for the last year, maybe more, but looking at, this goes back to, okay, I got to say this the right way. I've spent most of my life, I'm almost 40. I'm going to be 40 in like 2 weeks. And I've spent most of my life being told that you cannot make a living as a writer, because it's, and I think it comes from this place of writing is not, and I think this is true of any art, it is not like working an office job. It's not like, you know, trying to become the VP of sales in at Wells Fargo, or, you know, becoming, I don't know, a teacher, where you're going to go to the office every day and you're going to do this thing and you're going to get a paycheck for the hours you put in. And writing is not like that. And so this book really struck home with me. The idea that you can make a living as a writer. It's very similar to doing office work. You just have to have the right tools. So like if I show up to an office in a crop top and cut off jean shorts and can't type or read or know how to file, I'm not going to last in an administrative assistant position for very long. And the same is true.
Depends on how short those shorts are. Just kidding. Sorry.
I was going to say depends on the office, but yeah, that works too.
But the idea is that, like, this book has really given me, and not just this one, but this one has led me down the path of there are practical applications for becoming a writer as a career, and they don't involve you starving to death on the street, which is my mother's biggest fear.
It's my biggest fear.
I'll hook you up with my mom. You guys can worry together.
Yeah, I know. Like sometimes I do worry that maybe, I mean, the thing is that I know we all have doubts, and like I said, 6 months out from the game, it didn't bode well. But at the end of the day, that can happen in any freaking job. People lose their jobs all the time.
That is so true. Nothing's safe.
There's no field where everything is guaranteed.
Right.
There's no field where they can guarantee you won't get sick. Or you know, yeah, that. So I do worry sometimes because I know it took me a while to figure out what I want to do, and that's a societal problem because growing up and until very late in life, I never viewed writing as a potential career. That was always something to do on the side.
Yes.
But now I realized that, you know what, I enjoy this career of mine so much that I can pick up after, you know, that worst period of my life and keep writing. I still want to do it to myself, so I'm still willing to put myself through the process of releasing books and hoping people buy them. And sure, it helps that I've done it a lot of times, and I'd like to say the fear that the book will tank goes away. Doesn't, not in my case. I don't know what that is, but you know, at the end of the day, it's a job I'd still do. I mean, I would do it. I would do it all the time, and I'm happy doing it. And I think it helped establish a clear mission in my mind, decide what I want to achieve with my books and with my work in general. It doesn't just apply to books. It applies to, I don't know, even the drawings I make, which, let's face it, they're not at the professional level. And yeah, I mean, I keep on going. Like, I get the fear of failure and the book tanking, but I don't think that's the worst thing that can happen. I think the worst thing that can happen is giving up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Amber, what was something that surprised you?
I think for me it was how well I responded to it, because I did go into it kind of wondering if it was going to be, like CJ has said, another one of those books where they're like, this is how you do it, and you know, it's going to be very vague, and you know, here's the exercises, and you know, I gave you kind of an idea, now you go figure it out. But I like the idea that, like, you know, I've had this book come out, and I know it didn't do well because I didn't market it that well, because I thought it was going to come out at a certain time, and things kept happening. So I was like, hey, it worked. Let's get it out, you know, and you know, and like I've got my first book I ever made that I'm trying to get off of Amazon if it will ever freaking work. Didn't do that well and everything, and so like I've had those failures, and I'm like, well, you know, now I know that, you know, the first one, it was the cover, and the second one, it was the marketing. So like, I like the fact that not only did I have kind of the failure to go by as I do the exercises, but that I could keep doing them with each book and see like how it's changed and things. And I think the part that surprised me on it was so that, as much as, like everybody always says, I do way too much, I take too much on, and I'm always busy and everything. But like, to me, I do 100% all the time, no matter what. And I know people tell you this all the time, but he has, I think it's chapter 8, where he's talking about, you know, 80% is good enough, because, you know, even your 80%, your other 20s, your typos and your accuracies, the reader's not going to get the intricacies of some of the things you talk about. Like he talks about like gun numbers and being so accurate. And for me with this series, I try to focus on getting like the Greek person correctly, so much so that I kind of lose focus of the novel, and then I kind of go down my own rabbit hole in the book itself, and halfway through I'm like, where am I going with this? So I think it reminded me of that, and surprised me that he was talking about how the readers don't care as much as you do, but then it depends on the genre. So I guess I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
When I do the exercises, I'm going to look at that part a little bit more closely and what they said on the feedback, because I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And there's never going to be a book that's 100% perfect.
Yeah.
There are typos in all the books out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who publishes them, because human error exists. And you think that having more people look through something helps, but no, because we have different blind spots.
And sometimes everybody has the same blind spots.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
someone's going to miss something.
And I think that's an absolutely excellent point, Amber, that 80% is good enough. And honestly, I think that applies to our world in general, like our
because it's sunny outside, it's finally warm, it's great, but hey, the wind is kind of annoying me. Like, fuck the wind, it's hot outside. You can be outside in the sun and enjoy it. Who cares? The wind is blowing a bit hard.
Yeah.
Is it taking you with it? No, that is fine.
Right.
Fine. Like,
well, for me, like, the way I grew up in that, you know, with my dad at the time was like, it didn't matter how good I did, I always could have done better. Yeah. And so I didn't realize how much I had taken that into adulthood, other than I always give 100%, you know, my best at everything. But, you know, like Aphrodite was saying, oh, I published a book, I wrote a book, and I published it, that's a win. But the way I grew up, that wasn't, because, you know, I could have said, well, but it didn't sell well, you know, it didn't become number one. And I could have let that get to me. And so, I don't know, for whatever reason, that chapter kind of surprised me in the way it hit me. To the point it almost knocked me on my ass, because I was like, I'm sitting here focusing on all these details and getting them specifically right, like it's a nonfiction biography, when it's fiction. Like, I'm making this entire story up. Why am I focusing on that one thing? Because the average reader is not going to be that into Greek philosophy like I am and know every freaking story. So I don't know why that chapter surprised me by hitting me on, just knocking me on my butt that much.
I have loved this conversation, and I hope that everyone who's been watching this or who's watching it in the replay, I guess it's time to start writing sprint again.
Sorry.
No, I've got mine going too.
I'm sorry. I considered muting it, which is what I did on our other stream, and then I forget to track the time.
Right.
Because I'm an idiot, that's why. So I'm sorry. I have to expose you to my crazy app, but
Let me see. I wanted to see if there was anything that people were saying in the comments that we could help them with or address real quick. I see that the chat had disconnected here. So
yeah, I will.
That was probably when I was asking my question.
Sorry. If you do get Chris Fox's book and read it and like it, like I'm with CJ, I'm halfway through my second book after this one. And I didn't honestly think, like, I'm reading the 5K book now, trying to like help your writing. And I was like, well, I already know most of this, but like the way he explains stuff and the exercises really do help. So if you're that kind of person, get the series, like get his books on anything you think will help you. Yeah. I like these books.
yeah, no, great there.
Jesse, your comments weren't off topic. You're talking about your experiences, and that's absolutely what I want. You know, that's what we want. That's why we're doing this. We want to talk about how this book and what we're learning has affected us, how we try to implement it, and you're part of this journey with us. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're talking about the topics that he talks about in the book, so that's on topic.
That's like perfect.
Yeah, no, I never thought any of the conversation going on was off topic. So
yeah.
Yeah, even when Shannon mentioned office perverts, like that's perfect.
Yeah, you started that.
That's what I'm saying. It was totally on topic.
Yeah, I know. But
sorry.
Just as a conclusion, I think as long as we all remember that there are several ways to do things, this is just one method. And we remember that we're doing that because we love it and gives us pleasure, gives readers pleasure. I think we're all going to be just fine. And just enjoy the book. Yeah, I know that's important. That's important, not giving up.
It's going to be hard, but it's worth it.
So there's there's an old Disney movie. It's a live action. It's from I want to say it's from the 50s. It's called The Absent-Minded Professor. They redid it in like the 90s called Flubber. But the original had a sequel called Son of Flubber. And because it was done in the 50s and 60s, and you had HUAC here in the U.S., the House Un-American Activities Committee, I think that's what they were. Anyway, but there's a scene where the main character's on trial, and the prosecutor's like, we've been told that you encourage your students to, he's a professor at a college, you encourage your students to fail. And he says this thing that I kid you not, since I probably saw this movie like 30 years ago, but it just resonates with me. And he says, someone who falls flat on their face is at least moving in the right direction, which is forward. So embrace your fails and get yourself up. And he talks about, the people who fail are the ones who don't get up after they fall. If you don't get back up, then you have failed. So I think that, I know, right? It's like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I love it.
Also, I want to address one comment. Aphrodite, you should call that a win. It doesn't matter that it worked because it was dumb luck. It's something that worked well and got you sales, and you need to analyze it and figure out why, and then apply it to future books. Because that's what I did with Sky and Storm. I realized the cover was cool and attracted people, and they liked the blurb and the premise, and that's why they read it, even if it was a weird combo. So there we go. You can learn from absolutely everything, even flukes.
Yeah, the only difference between a win and a fluke is a win you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And Chris Fox, he does address that, and he kind of gives you some guidelines to help you figure out why something worked and why something didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Aphrodite said that she was going to be buying this book next week, so just wanted to let you know that it'll help. which is
Yeah.
why I'm so excited that we did this book. Now, unfortunately, we haven't decided what book we're doing next month because that's just how this works. But
We could've
But
followed
we
that.
will.
as soon as
We
we
will.
figure it out, we will let you know. And it's going to be, I'm guessing, the last Saturday because, you know, I need plenty of time to procrastinate reading.
Yeah. Actually, okay. If it's Saturday, it works.
Let's see what day.
Oh wait, it's next month, not this month. Whatever. So yeah, end of April, right?
So that would be the 27th.
Hey, I'm glad.
Wait.
Because I went all the way to May.
I will say I will be at Sarah's house that Saturday.
Oh God.
And what?
So I would like to be here, but a lot of it depends on what our plans are during that weekend. So, but I'm down for that.
Absolutely understandable. Maybe.
Yeah, and well, we're having Easter the next day. Yeah, maybe Sarah will join us.
Maybe.
Make her read the book.
I mean, I'm fine with Saturday. Sunday is Easter here because we're a week late with Easter this year. So, yay.
I was like, when's Easter? So, you know, I'm on.
For you,
week before.
It's the 21st of April, and for us, it will be the 28th. And Saturday is the 27th. So it works.
Excellent. So, and it'll probably be around 2 p.m. Eastern because that's just how it works out.
Right.
Oh my gosh, my whole entire body cracked. So I think that's about time.
You want to start it later? If you want to start it later, you'll do it over my dead body. But okay.
Yeah, I think that now I couldn't do this an hour earlier because, like, for me, it starts at 8 a.m. and I can't talk to people at 7. It's just physically impossible.
Yeah, no.
But 8 o'clock, this works.
Yeah, no, this works. Don't move it an hour later because I mean it's 1 p.m. Easter, right? That we start, or am I? Yeah.
Central. Yeah.
1 p.m. Central.
2 p.m.
Oh, 1 p.m.
Eastern.
Central. Oh, okay, that's fine. As long as we keep the hour, it's fine. Sorry, I'm an idiot.
No, it's okay. Time zones, man. And like we're all basically different time zones, so it was a delicate balance.
Amber and I are in the same time zone.
Yeah, it's me and CJ are in the same time zone. Y'all are exactly 12 hours apart, so.
Which is fine. Actually, no. This was for this week alone. I was 11 hours apart because we haven't switched yet to daylight savings. This is my last day of joy.
Think about that. Yeah.
This is my last day of joy that I was kind of closer to the US. I'm reverting to normal starting tomorrow, but whatever.
I love you, but there is nothing about you that is normal, my friend.
Yeah, right.
Thank goodness.
Any of us, for that matter.
Right?
I'm in normal time zone. That has nothing to do with me personally. Like we know. I mean, we all know. I'm beyond.
Let's be honest. We all know.
I'm beyond anything normal. It's fine.
All right. We have been jibber jabbering for almost an hour and a half. So let's wrap this up so everyone can go about their business and I can wake up my boyfriend because his alarm clock has been going off, y'all, this whole entire time. And
he's not up yet?
No. Oh, it's annoying. But let us start with Alina. Tell everyone where they could find you. If there's anything special you're up to next.
Yeah, let's see. So like I said, my name is Alina Popescu. I'm a genre fiction author. You have a link to my channel down below, and my website is alina-popescu.com. And if you go to alina-popescu.com/free reads, you can test out some of my books for free. You know, join my newsletter, get goodies, that sort of thing. In terms of what I'm doing that's interesting these days, well, I'm writing a lot. I'll start releasing more books next month. Someone took a break for personal care, self-care, sorry, that's what I wanted to say. And I'm currently like the newest thing that I'm doing is apparently writing mysteries. I may or may not have already designed a cozy cover that I posted in my author group. Although I've only written like 900 words for said cozy.
That's okay.
But I'm really proud. I'm really proud of that cover.
I have 5 cozy covers on the back burner, so they're not written yet, but they're there. I know.
Yeah, but at least you were writing cozies. Like,
oh, that's true.
This was on a whim. I just decided, oh, I'm doing this, and it's because of you and Claire and that project we have together that will probably be delayed 2 years, but it doesn't matter.
It'll come out one day.
Yep.
Amber?
Okay, so earlier in Alina's, I had said I didn't know what time we were going to do it, but tomorrow we're doing our write-in, Jazz and I, at 2 p.m. and then on Central Time, and then on the 1st at 8 a.m. Central Time. So that's our 2 write-ins that we have, the 31st and the 1st. And then, I guess with the exception of this stream, that Saturday, every Saturday we'll be doing write-ins for camp. So, and then I should have a video coming out this week. But that's all I got right now.
Excellent. And CJ?
I'm CJ Bloyer. You can catch my latest episode of the South Deer Island Chronicles over on Tumblr. And that's pretty much it. I'm here when I'm here. Friday nights on Sarah's channel. Oh, Thursday nights on Sarah's Twitch. Friday nights on Sarah's YouTube. Saturday mornings on Alina's YouTube. I pretty much just hang.
Yeah.
You won't be able to say that when you get Sarah's computer. You'll be doing videos.
Right.
We'll hold you through that.
That wasn't said with conviction.
It's fine. We can nag her into it. Like I say, nothing like sweet, sweet shame and peer pressure.
True. That's why I'm bringing out a video tomorrow. Nice. People have been asking me to do a video about my process of listening to my novel as part of my editing, and so I haven't put that out. So I'm going to put that out tomorrow. And then for Camp NaNoWriMo, which is happening starting on Monday. Wow. So we are going to be doing live stream write-ins on my channel on Thursday at I think at the same time, or no, it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, which is why I was thinking it was the same time, because it's both Tuesdays. Anyway, wow. All right. You didn't need that look into my psyche. Yeah, so we haven't figured out who's going to be writing with us or whatever, but it's going to happen. So
I can tell you who won't.
I know.
I'll be at work listening if I can.
I definitely be sleeping. And the thing is, like, I've realized during this time where I was closer to Sarah and I needed to be up for a 2 a.m. stream is that I can't. Like, if it's a 3 a.m. stream, I can. If it's a 2 a.m. stream, I'll sleep through my alarm. Like, I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. That was just
it's stupid. It's stupid. It's what it is, but I'm sorry.
I never catch yours because I'm always sleeping, so
yeah,
it's fine.
It suck, but
I totally get it. Sleep is good, man. It's good for you. You should do it more.
I should.
And I think that I'm going to try to do some type of daily vlogging for camp, but I'm not going to be doing huge, elaborate videos. It's going to be like 3, 4, 5 minutes checking in, telling you how that day went or something like that.
Yes.
And I think that'll be good for me to kind of get back into the whole vibe of making videos frequently, because I totally slipped out of that. So I'm going to bring it back in. And
perfect sense.
That about does it, I think. So thanks for joining us. I hope that you learned something. I hope this was helpful. And because that's the whole reason for doing this. Because if you're anything like me, then you have a crap ton of writing books and you don't read any of them. So that's why I decided to do this. And it's been so helpful. I'm still working on my newsletter, and now I'm going to be doing some exercises from this book. But it's good. It's like motivation, get you moving, get you to look at things differently. And I hope that's helped you.
Yeah. And it's actionable. I think that's what I like about the books we've read so far. It's actionable advice.
Yeah.
You can't just start doing it.
Yeah, you can start doing it. And really, there at any point in your writing journey, you can put these things into action. So if you're someone who's just starting out, or if you're someone who's been doing this for a while, you can still work on these things. There's still value for you.
Definitely.
So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, ladies, for being here with me so I don't have to blather on for an hour and a half by myself. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
I still don't know how you do that, but yeah.
A lot of coffee. And come back, y'all. Come back. I enjoy having you. And we're going to see you again next month talking about another book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.